Right, this is the big one. What's up, LEGO fans? I'm James May, but not that James May, LEGO designer turned AFOL, and this is Tubeside, the series where we take a peek underneath the brick, so to say, and see behind the scenes on what it takes to make a LEGO set. In this episode, we're going to be talking about my second ever LEGO set, and probably my most complicated one, the LEGO Ideas Typewriter. So, my first set was $10 Tuk Tuk, about 150 elements. It was a pretty good set as like a starting point for a new designer. It was at this time that the LEGO Ideas team said, hey, does any designer want to work on a new upcoming LEGO Ideas project? Because at that time, they didn't actually have a design team, so to speak. They just kind of had guest designers come onto the project to help them out. And as a new cocky designer that had just bashed out his first set, thought, yeah, sure, sign me up. How hard can it be? For those who don't know, LEGO Ideas is a platform where you can submit ideas. When it gets to 10,000 votes, it's reviewed to be made into a real LEGO set. So I got the email from Sam, who was the manager on Ideas at the time, asking everyone to work on a $200 typewriter, and I absolutely jumped at the chance. When I was a student in Glasgow at the height of hipster culture, I used to go down to local antique and junk shops and buy old things like cameras, radios, and of course, typewriters. So the 2014 Tumblr James was absolutely loving life right now. What I didn't realise was that owning an old broken typewriter is completely different from knowing how a typewriter works. So, I was assigned this project with one of the master designers, Wes Talbot, designer of such amazing sets as the Walt Disney Tribute Camera, the Modular Bookstore, and the Blacksmith. After a few initial concept sketches, we split the model down the middle, where Wes would work on the keys at the front end, and I would work on the carriage in the back, and they would meet somewhere in the middle. We did our research on what all the different parts of typewriter was called, because when we were starting out, we were kind of saying, oh, can you look at the, the thing that does the thingy? You know what I'm talking about, right? Clearly we had homework to do. There's a graphic designer who actually collected typewriters, so he was very helpful at letting us borrow some from his collection so we could, have a look at it and see what all the little bits do. The biggest challenge was typewriters are made of thousands of tiny metal bits, and we were making something out of comparatively massive, chunky plastic bits. So in order for it to act the same way, we would have to completely redesign how the mechanism works. The make and model we went for was made up rather than tying it to a specific brand or era. This meant we could change the design in subtle ways to suit the mechanisms without it becoming less accurate to a source material. Also, designing this in the summer of 2020, we didn't want a model with this stickered on the front. For instance, this nice little Art Deco jump in the casing was actually because we couldn't get the gearbox to fit otherwise, but in the end it added a bit of visual interest and break up the featureless space. This also allowed us to come up with our own brand with System in Play, which is a really nice touch. Fun fact, this seemingly random ID code stands for Steve Guinness, Never Give Up on Your Dreams, which is a nod to the fan designer. The Sand Green gives us a nice poppy colour, but it still keeps a level of sophistication and heritage that a proper bright colour wouldn't have. We didn't want it to be black, as the grand piano had just come out, and it'd be too similar, but also the green accentuated the dark elements like the ribbon spools and the keys, and it gives a bit of contrast. It wasn't the main deciding factor, but this was right when the flowers came out, so we already had these 32 long cross axles in sand green, so that saved us a colour change. Also, everyone asked if I picked it to match my hair. Sorry for everyone who was hoping the set would come with sand green 1x8 bricks. These bow parts made for the Porsche were a nice MPU, that's nice part use, for the curve at the front, and in this context they look bespoke, made for this model. So I think the running theme of this project was over-ambition. At the start we had a few functions that we wanted to have in the model, such as adding so that when you press down on a key, it would spring back up again. And, having like the roller move at the back and maybe move back and forth. But as we would develop these features, it would be like, oh, wouldn't it be great if when you press down on a key, it actually made a thing move? And what if, instead of having like a brick built piece of paper, what if you could actually, thread paper through the mechanism? And this just kind of spiraled out of control with each iteration until we reached a point where it's like, okay, what if you press down on a key, it makes the arm move up and down, and also it then moves the carriage along a bit, and you can feed paper into it, and you can then push it back at the end. And at this point, it was kind of too late to go back. We already had this idea in our head, and we just had to try and make it work. On my side, the problem with feeding paper through a LEGO mechanism is that the air gap between bricks is wider than a piece of paper. So any gaps in the bricks would just get the paper snagging and the piece would crumple. There was a lot of trial and error of just finding the right combination of weird shaped elements which would smoothly roll it all the way through. We were trying all sorts like chairs and weird things with curves, and in the end we went for these flag elements which worked quite well. We also had to design a way for the platen to slide, and we went through a lot of different versions, most of which looked like some weird sci-fi truck. We even thought of using the roller coaster elements at one point, which didn't work, but it would have been an NPU. Wes had a big challenge of making sure that everything was super solid without any wiggle room, and he had 30 plus mechanisms all tied to a single lift arm, and they all had to link up. That's how he came up with this absolutely insane method of threading all the arms on the 32 long cross-axle element and make sure it's solid like a brick, but not like a Lego brick, like a real brick. But also, if you find out you've made a mistake, good luck unthreading them all. One thing that's good about working in Lego design is that it has one of the highest densities of pure talent of designers per square meter in like most places in the world. So if you're stuck on something, there's probably someone in the building who's an expert on that topic. So several times we had to go to the Technic team and Creative Play Lab to ask for help on functions. It's kind of like when you're a kid and you're stuck in your homework, so you have to go to your parents for help. It's like, Mom, please, my Technic mechanism doesn't work. But those guys were absolute wizards, and they managed to come up with like the absolutely insane gearbox that gets the car to move along by single segments using that cool sawtooth wheel. But in the end, we still had to figure out how to make it small enough to actually cram in the casing. Just as a side story, you know that dream that you have where you have to do a presentation or an exam on a really complicated topic that you have not prepared for? I kind of had that on this project. So in the design process, we have these milestones where regularly you have these big meetings where people from the model coaches who check to make sure that the Lego model meets up to quality standards, and the people that write the building instructions. We have a big meeting with them where it's like a day long where you just go brick by brick and you build up the model with them kind of critiquing it as you go along. At this time, I'd only done this once before with like a tiny $10 model. So Wes said, "Don't worry, I've got this." So on the day, he was ill, so I had to then run this meeting that I had no idea what I was doing. It wasn't too bad when it was my half of the model, but we were going through all the different complicated bits at the start of the model at the front where Wes was working on it, and they'd be asking me these questions like, "Oh, so why was this designed this way?" And I would have to just be like, I don't know. I did manage to do it in the end, but it was a real trial by fire. And for the next meeting, luckily Wes was better by then, but also we were both fully prepared for it. But after all this, we finally did it. We got the model buildable, we packed it with some crazy functions, and it looked so good, we actually had to go back and swap some of the tiles for studs, because it looked too lifelike and didn't have enough Lego DNA. The photo of the designers in the building instructions was actually in old Kurt Christian's office in the Idea House. It was such an honor to sit at that desk, even if I was only pretending to work. We actually got to do a designer video for this model, which was a great experience, and my first little taste of making video content. I just wish my setup at home was anywhere near as good as what they had. Also, I don't know when else to mention this because no one picked up on it at the time, but in the designer video, I managed to sneak in a wee Bionicle reference. Just thought I'd let you know. It was also awesome having my model featured in the National Museum of Scotland when they had an exhibition on typewriters. It was a signal to them of the pop culture relevancy of this Scottish invention, and it was just a wee bit extra bonus that one of the Lego designs was also Scottish. Working on models for kids, there's a sense of pride with inspiring the builders of tomorrow. But working on models for adults, you get to go, sick, when you see the likes of Hideo Kojima and Ali Plum posting about it on Twitter. So the problem with pulling off so much is that we kind of made it look too real. So if it was just a static model without really any functionality, people would go, "Oh, cool, a Lego typewriter. It's a typewriter made of Lego bricks. That's great." But by adding so many kinetic features, people were more likely to say, "What, and it doesn't ding at the end?" No, Jerry, you can't make plastic ding. It's not metal. I think the only thing I would have liked another pass on was the return lever. On a real typewriter, you push it to make the carriage return. Thus the name. But being made of plastic, having a big arm like that bends it. So instead of deforming your Lego bricks, we opted to give it a clean break at the base. But after what we went through, we were just happy it looked so good. This model taught me so much about Lego design, and Wes was such an inspiring mentor. And it also gave me my first taste of adult Lego models. And this would then lead to me joining the Ideas team full time when they took on permanent designers. But that's a story for another time. So, thank you for letting me sit here and cry about having to actually use my brain at work for once. Ultimately, we are still playing with Lego bricks, so as much as I'm sitting here talking about all the challenges, we still had a blast throughout the whole design process. If you have any questions about the Typewriter, please leave a comment below and hopefully I can answer them. And if there's any other Lego set from my brickography that you want me to go over next, leave that as a comment as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and unlike the Typewriter, don't forget to ding the bell. See ya.